Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Shift of Shadows. Episode 5. Jasper's POV. Alpha Warwick was staying in one of the unoccupied homes a little ways from the pack. I didn't even bother to get first name, it didn't matter to me. That man was nothing but a sperm donor in my opinion. Jasper, how could you do this? He has years of experience on you. Mom wailed. I sighed. She'd been crying non-stop since Alpha left. For the first time, she was very unhappy with Violet, and she made that clear. Linda, don't Linda me. She snapped at Dad. Our son is going to die. I scoffed. Thanks for the confidence, Mom. She glared at me. This is a fight to the death, Jasper. There is no yielding, no mercy. You're taking on an alpha. Do you not understand how ridiculous this is? You've all but signed your own death notice. Mom, I've been training since I was 8. I can handle any weapon put in my hand, and I'm the best shot around. He has a point. Alpha Dimitri added. Jasper was already on his way to becoming the lead warrior. I'd even make him a beta, if it was my decision. But he wasn't meant for those roles. He's an alpha. This is different than training. You've never killed anyone before. Mom whimpered. I got down on one knee in front of the couch, catching her eyes. That man is tearing families apart, sending children to the battlefield. The only thing he's fighting for is maintaining his lifestyle. I'm fighting for the freedom of the pack. I have way more motivation to win than he does. I will not lose this, Mom. I give you my word. Silent tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't argue again. Everyone else was already consigned to the fact that I was bent on this challenge. We'd agreed it would take place as soon as possible, which just happened to be tomorrow evening. Enough time to clear the training yard, and notify those who needed to be here. Namely, Alpha Warwick's mate and son, his beta and gamma. I gave Mom a tight hug before I stood, but she caught my hand. If you die, I will kill you. She growled. Low laughs sounded at her words. I know. I chuckled. I was ready for some alone time with my mate. However, just as I reached her, an unexpected figure appeared beside us. Literally, popped into the room out of thin air. I jumped about 5 feet back, pulling Violet with me. Hello everyone. Grandpa. Good goddess, Dad. I've told you to stop doing that. Shouted Luna Lily. Gideon simply laughed, looking highly amused. I seem to have a renewed interest in scaring people this way. I forgot how fun it was. Yet, hilarious. I grumbled. Gideon looked around. Well, everyone is here. That's good, saves time from having to round you all up. What are you talking about? Alpha Dimitri frowned. Gideon took the seat next to my mom, who was staring at him as if he was a demon that had appeared. He ignored her, focusing on his daughter. I reckon I beat Garrett home, as he just left my house. But I'll still have to make this short. Garrett went to your house? Luna Lily asked. Gideon nodded. I could explain everything that happened, but the short version is he told me what was going on with him, his mate and Jasper here. He gestured to me. I came up with a solution, and he agreed. I was very confused, but the Alpha and Luna narrowed their eyes considerably. What solution did he agree to? To take his memory of the conflict between him and his mate. His words were followed by a tense, stunned silence. Every single pair of eyes were centered on him, and a lot of jaws had dropped to the floor as well. I personally had no idea what to think. Garrett had no memory of that night anymore? What about Sophia? What about Sophia? Violet asked my unspoken thoughts. She was there. She also agreed. Well, she actually asked for me to do it. He agreed to let you take his memory. Luna Lily whispered. Not all of them. Specifically the event that has caused so much torment, and anything resulting from it. Including finding out Sophia was his mate, and the resentment towards Jasper and Violet. Wait. Mom shook her head. So, those two, don't know they are mates anymore? What about their wolves? The spell works on them too. When they see each other again, it will be like the first time never happened. Gideon explained. Then he turned to the alpha. I would appreciate it if you refrained from punching me again. I'm not as young as I used to be. That comment was lost on me, but everyone turned to Alpha Dimitri. To my surprise, he didn't look angry. Perhaps, it was for the best. Gideon raised one eyebrow, but Luna Lily rounded on her mate. What? She shouted. You're condoning this? Yes. Why? Because it was killing our son Lily. He wasn't himself, hasn't been himself. If there is one thing I don't want, it's for him to turn out like me. Like I was. If I'd had the option of erasing my pain, my anger, I'd have taken it too. Maybe we would have had a different start if I had. I won't deny Garrett this opportunity to have that second chance. The Luna's posture shrank, her chest deflating. I can't argue with that, I guess. So, nobody is going to hit me? Gideon asked. I still might. His daughter hissed. In that case, he stood, giving Violet a quick side hug as he passed us. I'll be going. Ta. He snapped his fingers, disappearing as easily as he had come. I really couldn't deny that I liked the guy. He was amusing, if nothing else. So. Violet wrinkled her nose as she thought. Does this mean that Garrett and Sophia think they're still together? If neither of them remember that night, then they wouldn't remember breaking up, right? I think so. The Luna sounded uncertain. But they haven't been with each other in over a year. How are they going to hey? Violet let out a high-pitched squeal at the sound of her brother's voice. Garrett. He looked around the room. I tensed, as usual, when his eyes landed on me. Instead of the anger and hatred I'd come to know, he simply nodded at me, no trace of his previous feelings in his eyes. Why is everyone in here? He asked curiously. We were, in a meeting. Luna Lily said. With another alpha. Beta Ben added. He'd been so quiet, I'd almost forgotten he was here. Oh. Violet cleared her throat. So, what's going on? Did you need us for something? Not really. I was just wondering where everyone was. Why are you guys acting so weird? Nobody seemed to know what to say, they were glancing at each other nervously. I stepped forward. They're just nervous. I'm challenging Alpha Warwick tomorrow night. I said. Garrett stared at me. Again, there was no hint of anger. Really? Why? Partly because he's an AE. It's a long story. Hey. Well, good luck. Thanks. I'll see you guys at dinner. And he left. A collective sigh was released from everyone present. And then. Get back here. Now. Everyone winced as the Luna's voice sounded in our minds. Alpha Dimitri rubbed her shoulders, trying to calm her down. Clearly, she hadn't meant to mind-link all of us, her emotions taking over. Gideon popped back into the room, a good distance away from his daughter, who was seething with fury. He doesn't remember anything. She shouted at him. That is the point of the spell. Gideon told her. Violet says they've been apart for over a year. He's going to go crazy when he realizes he's skipped more than a year, with no memory of how or why. Lily, relax. Do you take me for a novice? A novice? More like AFK. What exactly did you do? Alpha Dimitri interrupted. He had his arms around the Luna, rocking back and forth slightly. It didn't seem to be helping though. I replaced the memories he lost. Before he was yelled at again, he held up his hand. Let me explain. There was one memory where he was in his room, doing homework. He started thinking about that party, and couldn't finish because he was so upset. I took the painful part of that. When Garrett looks back on that night, he will only remember being too tired to finish the homework and going to bed. But what about the breakup? Violet asked. They haven't hung out, or been a couple in a long time. How are they going to explain that when they see each other again? As far as they know, they did break up, but not the way it happened. It was a mutual breakup, but they remained civil and friendly. They ended on good terms. Gideon explained. So, you took me out of the picture completely? I asked. Yes. I couldn't deny the relief that brought me. Yes, I had FK'd up. Badly. What I had done was now the cause of so much grief and stress within this family. How could I not feel happy that the anger and tension was erased, allowing everyone to move on finally? Thank you. I told Gideon. I did not do it for your benefit. He replied. I did it for my grandson. Understandable. Luna Lily stepped forward. You better know what you're doing. She scolded. I do. Trust me, Lily, this will work out. She rolled her eyes, but it seemed the argument was over. It was already done, after all. I turned my attention to Violet again, rubbing my thumb over the back of her hand. I opened my mouth, but was once again interrupted. Jasper. Come here. Alpha Dimitri ordered. I released his daughter's hand, walking to his side. Yes, Alpha. How do you feel about a little training? Refresh your techniques, loosen up a little before tomorrow. My jaw almost dropped. Train? You mean, with you? He chuckled. Yes. I felt like jumping around like a little kid. Training with the Alpha? That was a privilege very few people got. I nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely, Alpha. Dad. Violet joined us, frowning. Don't hurt him, okay? Why do all you women not have any confidence in me? I asked. Violet's hands went to her hips. You forget who trained me? I know what he can do. I want you back in one whole piece. She eyed Alpha Dimitri meaningfully. He will remain intact. He promised. Then he turned to me. You good to start now? Yes, Alpha. I turned to Vi, kissing her forehead. I wanted to spend time with you, but you can come and watch if you want. Actually, I want to talk to you, Violet. Luna Lily said behind me. She frowned, until I gave her one more kiss. I'll see you tonight then. K. Okay. With one last smile, I turned and followed Alpha Dimitri out of the room. Beta Ben was accompanying us, and I hoped he would join in on the training too. I focused on why I was doing this, the will to win at any cost. By tomorrow night, I would either be dead, or I would be the new alpha of Silver Moon. Violet's POV: come for a walk with me. Mom gestured for me to follow her. I was confused, but I did as she asked nonetheless. She nodded to all the maids on our way outside, stopping to talk to some of them about housework or asking how their families were. I, on the other hand, was growing a little impatient. Truth be told, I wanted to be with Jasper. Not even watching him and Dad train, I just wanted some alone time with him. I felt on edge today, and so much had happened. Garrett and Sophia getting their memories wiped, Jasper challenging Alpha Warwick. 2 things, but it was a lot. My mind was still processing each one. And, admittedly, I was terrified for my mate. I never thought he would actually challenge him, I just wanted to shut up and realize that Jasper could, if he were so inclined. Turns out, he was so inclined. But what if he lost? I shuddered, immediately blocking out the idea, even though it was a real possibility. You will have to learn patience, Violet. It is the one skill every Luna must have. Mom pulled me out of my thoughts as she continued walking. I glanced at her sideways. I'm not a Luna, Mom. When Jasper wins the challenge, you will be. When? I looked at her fully now. Yes, when. I have no doubt in my mind that your mate will succeed tomorrow. He is a clever boy. I scoffed. I don't think being clever is going to be much of an advantage. No. She stopped to face me, her expression serious. Alpha Warwick has years of fighting experience. He will rely on his favored fighting style, which is probably a little outdated. I've seen Jasper train, he is quick on his feet, and uses others' advantages against them. He analyzes his opponent carefully, learning their techniques and outdoing them. My eyebrows pinched in the center. Why are you telling me this? To give you some hope that your mate will return tomorrow. Thanks, Mom. Violet, you won't be attending the challenge tomorrow. I skidded to a halt, turning on her. What? I have to be there. I objected. But Mom simply shook her head. She took my arm, leading me out of the front door. Once we were out of earshot of anybody, she pulled me close to her. You cannot. We cannot risk you losing control. I set my mouth firmly. I won't lose control. I'm going. No, Violet. You have only just started to learn about your abilities. You may get too emotional, Jasper might get hurt. Our laws state that nobody can interfere with a challenge, especially an alpha challenge. If you, by any chance, used your magic to protect Jasper, the fight would be considered null and void, and Alpha Warwick would have every legal right to execute Jasper for cheating. But I wouldn't do that. Not intentionally, I know. I'm sorry, but this is how it has to be. And your father agrees. I bit my lip, upset and angry. Though part of me accepted her words, and I knew she was right. It wasn't as if my magic was very subtle, my track record was against me there. A broken window, and then a great chunk of the house itself. Unwillingly, I nodded, and Mom pulled me in for a hug. Don't worry. He will be fine, and I will update you along the way. What am I supposed to do during the challenge? You will be in the pack house. Luke will stay with you. In other words, you're getting him to babysit me so I don't sneak off. She smiled and nodded. I hated that she knew me so well. You better keep me in the loop. I demanded. I will, I promise. Taking a step back, I walked around with Mom by my side. An uncomfortable cramping was starting in my lower abdomen, and the edgy feeling I'd had today was getting worse. I tried to shake it off, tried to listen as Mom talked. I found myself squinting at her. Why was the sun so harsh today? And why was it so hot? I was already breaking out in a sweat, constantly wiping my forehead. Violet. Mom frowned. Are you okay? Yeah. It's a little hot out here. Suddenly, the cramping got worse. It went from a dull ache to full-on searing pain. I screamed, dropping to my knees. Mom echoed my cry, falling down to my level as well. Violet. What's wrong? Talk to me. She pleaded. It hurts. I gasped. What hurts? Where her nostrils flared, and her eyes widened. Mom. Unshed tears were in my eyes. What's happening to me? She rubbed my arms, a little too fast to be soothing. You're in heat. The pain in my stomach radiated down between my legs. That was all the confirmation of her words I needed. Mom looked worried. Her eyes were glazed over, and I knew she was mind-linking Dad. And then, a low growl sounded to my right. A man I recognized as one of the warriors was standing a few feet away, his eyes transfixed on me. I whimpered, tugging on Mom's sleeve. This was bad. Mom. Mom. Her eyes came back to her regular blue, following my line of sight. When she noticed the man, she let out her own growl. Hers was fierce and threatening in comparison to his. She jumped to her feet, stepping in front of me. I suggest you keep walking, Ian. She said. He didn't even bother to acknowledge her. Another wave of pain hit me, and the man, Ian, took a step forward, his eyes turning black. I said go. Mom shouted, her Luna voice echoing her words. Ian stopped, giving her an angry look. Are you deaf? I said step away from my daughter, now. The realization of who I was seemed to clear his mind a little. Ian turned and walked away, looking back at me a few times with longing. When he was out of sight, Mom bent down and pulled me into her arms. I need to get you back to the pack house. There are too many unmated wolves around. Just as she was about to pick me up, Dad's voice sounded. I barely noticed where they came from, only thankful to have them here at last. Jasper reached me first, and I nearly threw Mom to the ground as I jumped at him. His scent was so much stronger right now, the incredible aromas filling my nose. The pain was burning through me, and all I wanted was to touch him, taste him. I needed him like I needed air or water. Maybe more. Make it stop. I begged him. Please. He smoothed my hair. I will. Come on. Scooping me up easily, I tried to adjust my position to wrap myself around him. I wanted him now. No. He held me tighter. Your parents are right here. I really couldn't find it in myself to care much. They could leave, couldn't they? Nobody was making them stick around. But Jasper was already walking back to the pack house. The pain had subsided a little from having my mate close, but it wasn't enough. Jasper. I whined when another wave radiated through me. I know. We're almost there. He was panting a little, his eyes switching from silver to black and back again. At least he was hurrying. I'll make sure the maids know to give you privacy. Was Mom still here? I lifted my head, finding that she, Dad and Uncle Ben were giving us an escort back home. Probably because of what had just happened with the warrior, Ian. She placed her hand on Jasper's shoulder, and a vicious snarl ripped up from my chest and out my mouth. Everyone jumped back, eyeing me warily. Their reaction cleared my head a little. Did I seriously just snap at my mom? Sorry. I mumbled. It's fine. Mom gave me a reassuring smile. I should have known better. We left them at the front door. Somehow, Jasper managed to get me up the ladder without dropping me. He raced down the hall to our room, throwing the door open and kicking it shut behind us. He set me on my feet, his chest heaving. I didn't waste a second more. Wrapping my arms around his neck, I pulled him down into a kiss as hot as the fire inside me. His hands went to my waist, grabbing the hem of my shirt. We pulled back so he could lift it off. I wasn't as nice. Grabbing the neckline of his shirt, I tore it top to bottom. He looked down at my handiwork before meeting my eyes again. I liked that shirt. He smirked. I was already working on his belt, fumbling with it. He took my hands in his, guiding me backwards to the bed. He lay me down gently, using his arms to hover above me. I watched as he finished taking his belt off, followed by his pants and boxers. I was almost drooling at this point. The man was perfect, every line, every curve of him. The ache inside me intensified, and I grabbed his shoulder. Please. I gasped. Please, take me. Jasper's eyes flattened to pure black at my words. His mouth came down to mine, kissing me greedily. His hand slid down to undo the button on my jeans, and then he was pulling them off. When he started rubbing me over my underwear, I nearly lost my mind. I moaned loudly, wiggling my hips, wanting him to take this further, faster. Reaching between us, I grabbed his length, beginning to rub him up and down. He hissed at the contact, but it got my message across. In one swift motion, my underwear was torn off, flung off the bed in shreds. I was absolutely soaked as he positioned himself at my entrance, thrusting into me hard. Something between a gasp and moan left me, and continued. This is what I needed. I found myself meeting him thrust for thrust, the feeling lifting me higher and higher. Jasper's mouth was everywhere, my lips, my neck, my collarbone, my shoulders. Everywhere our skin made contact was pure, indescribable bliss. My nails racked across his back, earning low growls from him. Goddess. Yes. Jasper. I found myself becoming more bold with him as the haze in my mind carried me. Things I never dreamt I would say in bed were leaving my mouth uncontrollably. And I liked it. I liked that I could elicit such reactions from him. The merciless way he took me, the way he held me tightly, the grunts and growls. The way he looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. A few minutes later, we found our release together, his name like a prayer on my lips. But the relief I felt didn't last as long as I would have hoped. The pain came back only minutes later. And Jasper was once again ready to satisfy this need I had for him. It could have been hours, or days later when I finally cooled down and fell into an exhausted sleep, curled up in my mate's arms. I couldn't have cared less. Jasper's POV: I was in the training yard doing my best to focus on Alpha Dimitri and what he was telling me. Yet, my mind kept slipping back to the last 2 days with Violet. The challenge had been postponed for obvious reasons. Alpha Warwick wasn't happy, but I was sure his big problem was the reason for the delay. I'd briefly met his mate, Luna Ann. She was a bitter woman with a pinched face that always resembled someone who'd just sucked a lemon. I'd bet 10 to 1 that he hadn't gotten any in a while. I was exhausted, but happy. Vi hadn't let me rest for more than a couple hours at a time. I wasn't complaining though, the last couple days were the best of my life. I saw a whole new side of my girl, and I liked it a lot. It wasn't just the S*X either. She'd been so vulnerable, but bold too. If she needed water, I got it. If she wanted a cool shower, I sat in with her and washed her head to toe. And when she needed me, I was there to satisfy her. It made me feel needed, important, in ways I never had been before. It brought us closer. Yet, I'd held off on marking her. That was something I didn't want to do while she was in heat. I wanted her to have a clear head, not driven by uncontrollable lust, when we marked each other. I thought maybe she was a little disappointed, but she said she agreed. Focus, Jasper. My arm came up, almost a second too late, blocking Alpha Dimitri's fist. I took a few steps back, holding up my hand. Sorry, Alpha. Your head isn't where it should be. He frowned. I know. He sighed. I'm not going to even ask where your mind is, because I think I know. But you need to focus on this, not on that. You can't be daydreaming tonight. Sorry, I apologized again. I think Alpha Warwick did this on purpose. He knew I'd be tired today. He shifted uncomfortably, but nodded. Probably. But I couldn't argue. Violet's heat is over. There was no valid reason to postpone any longer. Unfortunately, being tired isn't a good enough excuse. He clicked his tongue, thinking. I think we've done enough for today. Why don't you go back to the house and try to get a few hours of sleep? That's probably the best thing right now. I stretched my arms. Sleep sounds good. Thank you, Alpha. Just Dimitri. We're family now, so we can drop the formalities. I raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. All right. Dimitri. I felt uncomfortable not using his title. Like I was disrespecting him. It would definitely take some getting used to. We walked back to the pack house together, the wind blowing wildly around us. A storm seemed to be on the way, though I had no idea when it would hit. The air was thicker today, humid. Are you nervous? Dimitri suddenly asked. I shrugged. I think I'd be a fool not to be. This isn't a regular fight, after all. No, it's definitely not. He stopped walking, turning so we were face to face. Have you ever seen a challenge before? I shook my head. They are rough. I need you to understand that. Your opponent won't go easy on you. And this is much different than fighting rogues. He will be looking to kill you. He met my eye. No matter what, Jasper, don't let him win. Not just for my daughter's sake, but for the sake and future of Silver Moon. Warwick has no business holding the title of Alpha. Regardless, he will do anything and everything to hold on to his position. Be wary, and be careful. But don't forget that I, as well as everyone else, believes in you. Should you win tonight, I believe you will make a great Alpha, someone I would be lucky to have as an ally. My face grew red with emotion. This man was treating me like an equal already, but I didn't feel like I'd done much to deserve that. So far, my only claim to this family was the fact that I was mated to his daughter. But I'd also been the cause of much discord among them, to the point that Garrett used magic to heal and move on. And he was saying he believed in me? That I'd be a great Alpha? I wasn't as positive on that as he was, but I would spend a lifetime trying my best if I got the chance. Thank you. I managed in response. That means a lot. Dimitri patted my shoulder. However, if you hurt my daughter by dying, I'll wait the rest of my life and then kick your ass in the afterlife. I laughed at that. Understood. Good. You go on, I have some things to do. I'll see you tonight. We went our separate ways, me dragging my feet back to the house. It was 11 in the morning, but Violet was still sleeping when I got back to our room. Typically, it took another full day for she-wolves to completely recover from their first heat. Quietly, I slid under the covers next to her, admiring her peaceful expression. My eyelids drooped as her scent wafted around me, and I was asleep within minutes. Jasper! Wake up! My eyes opened. The first thing I saw was Violet's face, no longer asleep, but hovering above me. She peered down at me with a strange expression. I forced myself to sit up, rubbing my eyes. What time is it? I drawled out sleepily. Almost 7. The remaining sleep in my brain fizzed away at her words. Our eyes met and I could almost feel the tension rolling off of her. Once again, she was worrying her lip with her teeth, while her whole body was fidgeting. I had exactly 1 hour before the fight started. I need to go, I said quietly. I know. Neither of us moved. The words I wasn't sure if she was ready to hear sprang to my lips, but I held back. Although, what if this was the last time I ever saw her? Emotions crashed down on me. What had I been thinking, challenging Alpha Warwick? How could I chance losing Violet? No, she should know how I felt. She interrupted my declaration with a heartfelt kiss. The force of it took my breath away. I could feel the tears on her cheeks as they transferred to mine. Don't! She whispered. Not now. When you come back, I want to hear it. Okay. I nodded mutely. Another reason to survive this. Vi gave me a small smile and another passionate kiss before she moved off the bed. Dad told you I have to stay here. Yes. I'm sorry, but you know it's what's best. I know. I'll be down in the cafeteria. Okay. Quicker than I would have liked, I got dressed in a tank top and loose-fitting shorts. I opted to remain barefoot, and I was ready. Vi was waiting by the door, and together, we left the room. It was silent between us as we walked down the hall and descended the ladder. Only when she started to part ways did I stop her, this time pulling her in for a breathless kiss. I will be back. I promised her. Go kick some ass. She smiled and I chuckled. Just then, Gamaluke appeared, eyeing her meaningfully. I'm coming. She told him. We finally parted. The Alpha, Luna, and Beta Ben met me outside the front door, and together we started making our way. I didn't feel at all as ready as I should. Too much was staked on this match, an entire pack's well-being for one. And Violet's well-being, if I didn't live. How do you feel? Dimitri asked. Scared. I admitted. He frowned. You can't let him intimidate you so easily already. I shook my head. I'm not scared of him. I'm scared of what this will cost me if I lose. The damage my death will cause. Dimitri's face relaxed back into a neutral expression. Ah. Then you are in a good frame of mind. I stared at him, dumbfounded. Excuse me. You have legitimate reasons that will aid in you succeeding. Beta Ben spoke up. You're scared of what you might lose, what will happen if you do. Warwick is only afraid of losing his title, his wealth, and position. You have something honest to fight for. Just think of everything you just said. All those people, including my daughter. That's who you're fighting for, not just yourself. Keep reminding yourself of that. Luna Lily said. I nodded thoughtfully. They were right. I had people waiting for me, even if they didn't know me yet. People who were depending on me to free them from Warwick's brutal alphaship. We walked right across the training yard, heading to the forest. I would have preferred this fight take place in the training yard like so many other events. It was familiar ground for me. I knew every bump, every blade of grass. I'd been training there since I was 8 years old, even though I hadn't technically been allowed to. After school, I would sit on the sidelines and watch the sessions, following along at my own speed. Until the head warrior, Ned, allowed me to train alongside the others, conditionally. I wasn't allowed to spar until I was 13. And that had been my routine for years, until I was old enough to train properly like everyone else. Tonight, however, the fight would be taking place in a more traditional setting, for werewolves anyway. As we neared our destination, the trees started to thin, and voices could be heard. They ran together, a low hum on the wind. About 30 feet ahead, I could see lights. My stomach started to twist, and sweat gathered on the back of my neck. I took a few deep breaths to try and calm myself, reminding myself why I was here again. We stepped through the thicket. I was momentarily distracted by the view, my eyes wandering to take it all in. Torches had been placed in a large, wide circle, giving off more than enough light for everyone. And there was a lot of people. Obviously, the entire pack couldn't be here, but it sure looked like they tried. I scanned the crowd, recognizing some people from school. There were even people sitting in the trees, not able to find a spot on the ground. I received a lot of smiles and shouts for victory as I followed my escorts. The sounds of genuine support for me warmed me a little inside. Looking ahead, I saw a low tent had been placed at the head of the circle. Inside sat Alpha Warwick, his Luna, and his son. I stared at the boy, a little shocked that he and I looked so much alike, given that we had different mothers. Aside from that, the only vibe I got from him was nervousness, and I felt a small pang that he might lose his dad tonight. On the other hand, Luna Ann looked the same as always. Totally uncaring. Though when our eyes met, she shot me a smug smirk. "Stand beside Ben, there." Luna Lily pointed and I dutifully walked to my place and waited. She took one of the seats inside the tent, while Dimitri stepped forward, addressing the crowd. "Welcome, Blood Moon." His voice rang out, silencing the distinct chatter. "We are here for the official challenge between Alpha Warwick of Silver Moon, and Jasper Cole of Blood Moon. Elders." 3 men I hadn't noticed before separated from the crowd, walking up to us. Each of them looked to be in their late 50s, or early 60s, and each one had an air of authority around them. They stopped in front of the Alpha, bowing their heads slightly. "By whom was the challenge made?" one of them asked. Beta Ben nudged me, and I cleared my throat. "Me," I said. "State your name." "Jasper Cole." "In front of the goddess herself, do you swear this is a fair challenge, an honorable challenge, and have taken no part in anything that would aid you other than your skill, your mind, and your heart?" "I swear." "To whom is this challenge made for?" Alpha Warwick stepped forward. "For me." "State your name." "Alpha Brian Eugene Warwick." "In front of the goddess herself, do you swear this is a fair challenge, an honorable challenge, and have taken no part in anything that would aid you other than your skill, your mind, and your heart?" "I swear." "In front of your Alpha, your Luna, and peers, and above all our goddess, state why this challenge was made." The seeming oldest elder looked at me, and I fumbled for a second. "Because Warwick wouldn't go over well with them." Beta Ben nudged me again, and I shook my head slightly to clear it. "I am the son of Alpha Warwick. By law, I have the right to challenge him for the title of Alpha. I believe he is no longer a suitable fit for that role. I could see Warwick's jaw clench, but he had to abide by the same rules I did. He couldn't lash out in front of the elders, even if he wanted to. Alpha Warwick of Silvermoon, you accept? Yes. All three bowed their heads again. Let the challenge commence, and may the goddess bless you both. With that, the three men walked off to the side, rejoining the crowd. Warwick gave his son a pat on the head, but barely glanced at his Luna. It was then that I noticed an actual circle had been painted on the dirt in blue. The ring. You coming, boy? Alpha Warwick was already standing on the other side of the circle, a mocking smile on his face. Discarding my shirt, I stepped forward as well. Jasper's POV, I took my spot across from Warwick, regarding him with careful eyes. Dimitri's voice sounded behind me. The rules agreed by both parties are as follows. There will be no weapons. There will be no yielding. There will be no third-party interference. There will be no attacks on spectators. Shifting is permitted. And lastly, there will be only clean kills, no mutilation of any kind will be accepted as a victory. Begin. Warwick cracked his neck, the smugness never leaving his face. I had to admit, I was impressed by him. The man had a lot of muscle, and he was well toned. He was a big guy, but that only meant he would fall harder. We started circling each other, and the crowd was buzzing with anticipation. I tuned it out, totally focused on the man opposite me. I looked for anything I could use, any weaknesses. He had a long scar that ran from his left knee down to his ankle. An old battle wound? Not brave enough to make the first move, boy. My eyes snapped up to meet his. What happened to all your confidence? Sometimes too much confidence can lead to making stupid mistakes. I replied. And sometimes, it's called knowing what you're doing. Suddenly, he lunged for me. I blocked his punch, sending a sharp right hook to his jaw. The impact had him flying back several feet, though he remained on his feet. Rubbing his jaw, Warwick eyed me with renewed interest, and a new anger. Not bad at all. But just because you landed the first hit, doesn't mean you'll be walking away from this. He struck again, this time coming from the left. I dodged neatly, going on the defensive. Maybe it was a stupid plan, but it was my best shot right now. I had no idea what his fighting style was, but the more he attacked, the more I learned. It was becoming easier to tell where he would move, what he would do. And the more I picked up, the less I had to try. Meanwhile, Warwick was tiring himself out, exactly as I had hoped. His leg isn't as strong as the other. He's leaning more to the right. Eno said. That's his weak point. I agreed. I caught Warwick's wrist, twisting his arm. He cried out in anger, jerking back. I countered by pulling him closer, landing a solid kick just under his left knee. And down he went. You old fool! What are you doing? Luna Ann screeched from the sidelines. And that's when I made a terrible mistake. Taking my eyes off Warwick for just a second to glance at his screaming mate. Look out! Eno's voice shouted in my head, but it was too late. Pain ripped through my torso and I gasped. I let go of him to clutch my side, it was wet, and warm. Blood ran down, pooling in my hands and dripping onto the dirt. I jumped back, nearly losing my footing. Warwick's claws were out, fury raining on his face. Left. Acting on instinct, I rolled to the left, very narrowly avoiding another attack. He was back on his feet, and I was on my knees. It was at that moment that the realization of the situation struck me. Part of me had been hoping that if I could best him, get him down long enough, he would yield. But I knew now that wasn't going to happen. He was out for blood, aiming for the kill. And he would kill me without hesitation, without mercy. I'd been thinking like the boy he thought I was. But no more. Warwick charged at me, I rolled again, this time landing on my feet. Channeling my wolf, I felt my own claws extend. I ducked around his assault, swiping my hand across his chest. Blood spurted immediately, though I knew I hadn't gone as deep as I wanted to. His foot connected with my chest, and I landed in a pile, the breath totally knocked out of me. Get up, we have to get up. Oh no. Warwick stood above me, his foot pressed down on my chest. A wicked smile played on his face. He was breathing raggedly, while I was still having trouble breathing at all. Stay down. If you give up right now, I might even make this a quick death. F. you. I spat. You put up a good fight, Jasper. I'm even a little proud, if I'm being honest. But this is where it ends. His foot moved to my neck, pressing down and cutting off the little air I was getting anyway. I tried desperately to move it, to wiggle free, anything. But the position was against me. Eno, we have to shift. My bones started snapping, and Warwick frowned at me. Really? I'm an alpha. Do you really want to take on my wolf? I glared at him as my face transformed. You're not the only alpha in this ring. I growled. I gave control to my wolf, and then I was on 4 paws instead of 2 feet. Thankfully, my shifting had worked in throwing Warwick off. By the time I looked back at him, he had also shifted. It was obvious who was bigger. I stood at least 2 heads above him, easy. A loud, vicious snarl ripped out of me, and a lot of the crowd started backing away. I knew I had to be careful now. He might be smaller, but that only meant he had better access to go for the neck. We paced in a circle, snapping at each other, until he lunged, jumping at the still open wound on my side. I dodged, turning to grab his flank. Blood filled my mouth as I tore a chunk of flesh away, throwing it to the ground. He yelped, jumping away, and I saw my opportunity. I ran at him, running my claws down his face. At the same time, I sunk my teeth into the fur on his neck, shaking harshly. Warwick's yelps and whines echoed through the air, until I let him go, throwing him across the dirt. He lay, bleeding and panting, his eyes on me and filled with fear. No. Get up. Get up. You stupid. Luna Ann was frantic. I walked over, standing above the man that was my father. Without hesitating, I grabbed him by the neck again, biting through fur and skin as hard as I could. He went limp, and I dropped him. Blood started to pool, his body reverting back to human. Warwick was dead. There was a moment of total, absolute silence. And then cheers erupted from the crowd. I turned to see everyone clapping, shouting, grinning. I caught sight of my parents. Mom was crying, the relief almost tangible even from where I was standing. Luna Lily walked to me, smiling hugely, and holding a pair of shorts. I shifted back, grateful that she brought extra clothes. The victory goes to Jasper Cole of Blood Moon. Alpha Dimitri announced, and the cheers grew again. Come on. Let's get you cleaned up. Luna Lily took my arm. No. I looked up to see Luna Ann storming over to us, dragging her son. The challenge is over, Luna Ann. Luna Lily said. Maybe for my mate. She tossed the boy in front of us. He landed on his knees, and he looked terrified. What is this? Dmitri demanded. She pointed to her son, is challenging him next. What? I exclaimed. This boy isn't even old enough to rightfully take part in an official challenge. Luna Lily yelled. That doesn't matter. He has alpha blood, and as Luna, I have the right to offer him up as a challenger. Are you insane? I demanded. I'm not fighting a kid. You don't have a choice. She spat back. I looked down at the boy, my half-brother. He was shaking on the ground, looking between the three of us. Big, fat tears were running down his cheeks. Please. I don't want to die. He begged. Where are the elders? This is legal, just ask them. Luna Ann looked around for the three elders, who unwillingly stepped forward. Unfortunately, the Luna is correct. The boy has been offered to fight, so he must as an alpha heir. Another frowned. That's ridiculous. He doesn't even a wolf. Luna Lily screamed at them. It is the law. Luna Ann smiled viciously, but I felt like throwing up. There had to be a way out of this. No way was I going to lay a hand on that kid. If you refuse to fight, you yield your victory, and it goes to my son. I glared at her, sickened she was using her own son this way. Was this her idea alone? Or had Warwick and her planned this together, in the event of him losing? It didn't really matter in the end, it was wrong. I racked my brain, trying to come up with an answer. This law of yours opposes my pack law of harming children. Alpha Dmitri told the elders. The boy is not from your pack. Why does that matter? He's on my land. How can you do this? I asked Luna Ann. You know he will die. Why present him as a challenger? Do you not care about him at all? She shrugged. My son has a duty to his pack. He knows that. I looked down at him again, my guts twisting. Around us, the pack was shouting their disapproval along with insults at Luna Ann. And suddenly, thankfully, I thought I had the answer, the solution to this horrible scenario. What's your name? I asked him. Chiron. He whimpered. I crouched down to his level, hoping my expression was reassuring. You're not going to fight today, Chiron. I told him. So you're conceding your victory then? Luna Ann asked. No. I held out my hand. Hesitantly, Chiron took it and I pulled him to his feet. He's going to renounce his claim as alpha heir. What? Of course he's not. Would he have to fight if he did this? I looked at the elders, who wore varying expressions of relief. No, he wouldn't. Chiron. Don't you dare! His mother screeched. Alpha Dmitri stepped in between them. Chiron, if you renounce your claim as alpha, you can walk away. Otherwise, you have no choice but to fight Jasper. You know you can't win. This is the only way for you to live. He will not. I renounce my claim. Chiron shouted. I renounce it, I renounce it. I don't want to die. I don't want to be alpha. He wailed. You brat. You're as useless as your father. Do you not care about the pack at all? Luna Ann screamed at him. And then Luna Lily stepped forward, her hand whipping out and slapping the woman. The resounding smack echoed around the forest, audible gasps following it. How dare you stand here and talk about the well-being of your pack when you just offered their heir as if he were nothing? As if he was fodder for the livestock. You should be ashamed of yourself, you are no Luna. And you're certainly no mother. The victory of the fight is Jasper's. And your son has renounced his claim as Alpha. Therefore, you are no longer Luna of the Silver Moon Pack. One of the elders stepped announced. She seemed stunned by the turn of events. Still holding her cheek, Luna Ann, or now just Ann, grabbed Chiron's arm and began to stalk away. Hold on. I caught Chiron's other hand, stopping them from leaving. You don't have to go back, Chiron. You don't have to go with her. I'm his mother. I ignored her. You can stay here, Chiron, and come back when I go to Silver Moon. You can stay in the pack house with me. I got down on one knee. I'm your brother, and I will take care of you. Enough. Anne pulled Chiron out of my grasp. But he resisted. No. I want to stay with him. I want to stay with my brother. He kicked at her shins. I hate you. I don't want to go with you. Chiron, I swear to the goddess. Abruptly, I was shoved to the side. Beta Ben landed on top of me, and I had a second of confusion before I looked up to see Luna Lilith Wolf standing above us. A few screams echoed through the night at the sudden appearance of the mother wolf. I was just glad I'd been shoved out of the way of her shift. Anne dropped Chiron's hand and stumbled back several feet, her mouth hanging open. He ran to me, launching himself into my arms where I held him tightly. Chiron stays at Blood Moon. The Luna's voice sounded in my head, as well as everyone else's. Anne whimpered in terror. You are hereby banished from ever stepping foot on our land again. Leave. Now. Violet's POV. Would you calm down? We would hear if something happened. Uncle Luke said. Easy for you to say. I grumbled. Mom had abruptly stopped mind-linking me, and wasn't replying anymore either. My anxiety went from a little to over the top in seconds. I couldn't sit still, pacing the cafeteria while Uncle Luke sat and watched. I desperately wanted to reach out to Jasper, but I didn't want to distract him either. This was torture. Don't forget this was your idea. Luke said. Why would you remind me of that right now? He shrugged. Just saying. Next time, keep your opinion to yourself. I shot him the finger and he chuckled. You're going to make one hot-tempered Luna. Only if Jasper lives. Which we don't know, because nobody is telling me what is going on. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. Chiron stays in Blood Moon. Mom's voice resonated in my head, causing me to jump at the sudden intrusion. I looked at Uncle Luke. He was on his feet, his light expression now serious. What was that? Who is Chiron? I asked. You are hereby banished from ever stepping foot on our land again. Leave. Now. I winced at the fury in her voice. I'd never heard my mom so angry before, ever. Before I could stop, I found myself moving to the door, needing answers. Clearly, something had gone wrong, or Mom wouldn't have been intervening. But Uncle Luke beat me there, blocking the exit with his muscular frame. I'm sorry, Violet, but you can't leave. What? Come on, Uncle Luke. I need to know what's happening. Then wait until your mom or someone else mind links you. I'm under Alpha orders to keep you here until they return. I can't disobey that. I growled, turning away. Mom. I held my breath. Hopefully she answered me this time. We are on our way back. Stay in the cafeteria, we need to talk. My heart started thumping painfully. My lungs constricted, and I gasped at the air that suddenly seemed too thick. Why? Is it about Jasper? Is he okay? He's fine, don't worry. He won. My legs nearly gave out at the news. I reached out to grab the nearest table, Uncle Luke coming up behind me and guiding me to sit. Is he? Did he get hurt? Nothing that won't heal. See you soon. I looked up at Uncle Luke, my eyes glassy. They're on their way back. Jasper won. I breathed. He smiled at me. I knew he would. You've got yourself one fighter, Violet. He all right? Mom said he was. She said to stay here, that they need to talk to us. He nodded, taking the seat beside me and rubbing my back. The action calmed the last of my nerves, and before I knew it, the doors opened and in walked a group of people. Mom was first, her expression heated. Dad followed behind her, and he didn't look much different. Next came Uncle Ben, who nodded at me, and then, finally, Jasper. I jumped up, running towards him. Only to stop short when I noticed he had his hands full. He was carrying, was that a child? I looked between the kid and him, my face a huge question mark. Sit down, and we'll explain. Mom said behind me. Jasper, put him upstairs. There is an empty room 3 doors down from yours. He should be comfortable there. He nodded, turning to leave again. I grabbed his arm before he could make it out the door, and he looked back at me with blank eyes. I'm really happy you're back. I told him. The flatness in his eyes turned soft, and he smiled at me. I promised I would be right back. As soon as he was gone, tears welled up and started running down my cheeks. I didn't even notice when Garrett walked in the door, only realizing he was there when he pulled me into a hug. Hey, don't cry. He's safe, he's here. He soothed me. It was so weird, my brother talking like this about my mate. Still, his words didn't calm the flood in me. They only made it increase. This time, my legs did give out, and I pulled Garrett down as I sank to the floor, all my strength leaving me as I sobbed. All the anxiety and nerves and terror since he'd left were finally getting the better of me. Of course, I was overjoyed that he was safe, that he was alive. But the fact remained that he had risked his life because of me. Because of an idea I had, and stupidly put into his head. What would I have actually done if he hadn't come back? Oh my! Is she all right? A new voice said above me. Poor thing is probably overwhelmed. Violet dear. I peeked through my hands to see Linda crouched in front of me. What's all this now? Jasper is fine. But I made him go and fight. I mumbled pathetically. You most certainly did not. She cupped my cheeks, making me look at her. I'll admit I wasn't happy about the idea. But honestly, he would have done the same thing, eventually, once he figured out he could. She pulled me into a hug, rubbing slow circles over my back. Vi, if you'd seen him, you would be so proud. Garrett smiled at me. He was amazing. There was never any reason to worry. Everyone looked at him with mixed expressions, but I gave him a little smile. Really? Really? He's going to be an incredible alpha. He mock-punched my shoulder. But only if he doesn't have a snotty mess of a Luna by his side, so buck up girl. I laughed shakily, wiping my face. Thanks Garrett. Just then Jasper walked back in, taking in the scene before him. His eyes landed on me and immediately clouded in worry. What happened? Violet. He sank to the ground, and Linda released me. I threw myself at him, relishing in the feeling of being in his arms. I would never take this for granted. Sorry. I'm just really happy you're okay. I sighed. He laughed, kissing the top of my head. Then I remembered he hadn't come back alone. Who was that kid? I pulled back to look at his face. My brother. His brother? Oh. Warwick's son? Why did you bring him here? Why didn't he leave with his mom? He didn't want to. Mom said. I looked at her. Is that what we heard? And she nodded. Why? What did she do? Jasper picked me up, bringing me to one of the tables. Everyone sat down and, one by one, gave the replay of the fight from their perspectives. I almost choked when they told me about what Anne had done. What? How could she do that? I practically yelled. I'll be talking to the elders. And our allies. That law needs to be abolished. Dad sneered. I've never seen anything so disgusting. You already have my support in that. Jasper agreed. So, did Anne go back to Silver Moon? If she did, she had better enjoy her time there. I'm banishing her from that pack as soon as possible. Jasper growled. His words brought me to the reality that we would be leaving. We were now in charge of that pack now. The thought made me tense up. Was I good enough to be a Luna? I had every confidence in Jasper, but not so much confidence in myself. And how was I supposed to continue my lessons from Silver Moon? I couldn't ask Aunt Clara and Grandpa to just pack up and leave with me. Without my lessons, would I be a danger to the pack? Would I hurt someone? Hey! I looked up to see Jasper staring at me intently. Everything is going to work out. Okay. I released the breath I didn't know I was holding. Okay. I whispered back. When are you leaving? Dad asked. I'm not sure. Is there anything I need to do before we go? You may want to contact the packs Beta and Gamma first. Let them know the situation. Can I come to your office tomorrow to do that? Sure thing. They hammered out a few more details, and then people started to say good night. When Jasper's parents approached us, Linda looked determined. We're coming with you. She deadpanned. Mom. Jasper gave her a look but she held up her hand. Don't. We talked about this a lot, and we're okay with it. Besides, Silver Moon sounds like it could use a few extra helping hands. And Elena would miss you too much. We're coming. He sighed. I guess I can't stop you, if that's what you want. No, you can't. I giggled and Jasper rolled his eyes. They gave us each a hug before departing. I have to admit, I was worried about leaving Elena. He admitted softly to me. Well, it seems that problem is solved. I said, squeezing his hand. He gazed down at me, and I knew he wanted to be alone. I did too. So we quickly wished everyone a good night, and made our way to the doors. I had barely stepped into the corridor when Jasper scooped me into his arms, pressing his lips to mine in a hard, heated kiss. We stood like that, too absorbed in each other for several minutes. Eventually, I started to get dizzy from lack of oxygen and pulled away, breathing hard. I would say sorry, but I'm not. He sighed. I've wanted to do that since the challenge ended. I'm not complaining. He carried me all the way to our room, and someday I was going to ask him how he got so good at carrying people up ladders without dropping them. As soon as the door closed behind us, I pulled him back to me, the tension between us heavy. Part of me wanted to stop and assess if he had any injuries, but the majority of me just wanted him to be as close to me as possible, as soon as possible. Based on the way he was tugging my clothes off, I guessed if he was in any pain, he didn't mind. I want you. He growled lowly. Right here. Right now. His words made me shiver, his hands running down my sides, grasping under my butt. Then he lifted me, spinning so my back was against the door. I wrapped my legs around him, staring into his silver eyes. So take me. I panted. He didn't waste any time. My panties ripped across my flesh as he tore them off, my bra torn off with his teeth. Adjusting our position slightly, he took one hand from underneath me and started rubbing between my legs. My head fell back, my mouth opening. I was already wet, and his fingers teased me relentlessly until I started to squirm. He pushed 2 fingers in and I bit my lip at the feeling. His eyes never left my face the whole time, as if he didn't want to miss a single expression that crossed it. Does it feel good? Yes. I moaned. Do you want more? Yes. Setting me on my feet, he removed his fingers. He got down on his knees, placing my left foot on his shoulder. I looked down at him confused, but he just smirked up at me. And then his tongue was on me, and I nearly lost my balance. Oh! Jasper! He licked, sucked, and bit gently, but mercilessly. I couldn't do anything but stand there and try to keep my legs from buckling underneath me. My head was swimming with pleasure as he sucked on my clit, my hands in his hair. The sparks from our bond felt electric, only sending me higher on this ride. Oh my! Jasper, Jasper, please! His speed increased and my words died on my lips. The only sounds I could make were moans at this point, getting louder and louder until I found my release. My legs shook violently, Jasper grabbing them to keep me standing. When he stood back up, he had the biggest smile on his face, though it looked kind of smug. Taking me by surprise, he lifted me again, placing me back against the door. I'd barely gotten my breath back when I felt him at my entrance, slowly sliding into me. My mouth formed an O, my nails digging into his shoulder. I hissed. He kept going, stopping only when he was all the way in. The silver in his eyes was blazing, like icy fire. We were connected, one being, staring into each other's eyes. The intimacy of the moment made my heart swell. What had I ever done to deserve this man? The man who put his life on the line to help a pack he wasn't even a part of. People he had never met. He could have died in his mission to liberate them, but now he would get the chance. I was so proud of him. Goddess, you're beautiful. He whispered. Blood rushed to my cheek at his words. He started moving, pumping in and out of me, eliciting moans from me. He felt good. I was thinking about you. He rasped. The whole time. You kept me going, Violet. You helped me survive. I wrapped my arms tighter around his neck, bringing my lips to his. He kissed me with a passion I'd never felt before, and it set me on fire. Jasper. I whimpered. I could feel my core tightening, could feel myself tightening around him. He started going faster, harder, almost primal in his need for me. I saw when his eyes turned black, his canines elongating. He shook his head, but I stopped him. No. Do it. Mark me. I pleaded. The only response I got was a fierce growl. He wrapped his arms around me, swinging us away from the door and practically throwing us onto the bed. Not once did he pull out of me, just positioned himself over me. His wolf in control now. As soon as I felt his teeth sink into me. The pain was very short-lived, followed immediately by the most pleasure I'd ever felt before in my life. I was positive I'd never feel like this again either. Something in my mind clicked, and I realized it was the chest. I'd lost control of it, setting my power free. However, a million other emotions kept me from panicking. My body acted on instinct, pure animal instinct, and my teeth came out. I gripped Jasper's shoulder, finding the right spot, and bit him. He jerked a little at first, and then we were both riding this wave of ecstasy. I love you. His voice flooded my mind. The fact that it was said this way, instead of verbally, at this moment, made it absolutely perfect. I could feel parts of him, his soul, as we bound ourselves together. I could feel the love flowing from him, his very essence. It was beautiful. I love you too. A bright light shone in my eyes, blinding me. I closed my eyes, releasing my teeth as he did the same. When I opened them again, the room was as dark as before, and I wondered if I had imagined it. But as I went to lick his mark, closing the wound, I gasped, and knew I definitely hadn't imagined it. Because on his shoulder, right where my mark should be, was a tattoo. It was the same marking I had on my side in wolf form, now imprinted on his skin. It was a beautiful gold, almost shining even in the dark. I felt his fingers touch my shoulder, and I knew before I even looked. Just as I thought, I had an identical mark. The mark of the midnight wolf. Hala said proudly in my head. Garrett's POV. Everyone had already gone to bed, but I wasn't tired. You'd think I would be, after that show of a challenge. But no, I was here wandering outside, lost in my thoughts. Who would have thought that Jasper was such a skilled fighter? I mean, the guy trained like crazy, but I never expected that. Maybe it was the alpha blood in him? Or maybe he just worked really hard at being the best. Part of me wondered if I could win against him. It would be fun to try anyway, us both having alpha blood. At the very least, he'd be a good sparring partner. I was starting to warm up to Jasper, even though I didn't think I would. His reputation had me uneasy at first, but he'd shown nothing so far except adoration towards my sister. Maybe even love. And she seemed happy, happier than I'd ever seen her actually, so who am I to complain? Maybe Jasper wasn't even that bad, not as bad as everyone made him out to be. These thoughts swirled in my head as I walked. I ended up in the park, completely deserted now as it was so late. My eyes caught something moving to my right and I turned that way. Oh! Not as deserted as I thought. A girl was sitting on the bench, her head bent down. Was she crying? She didn't look like it. My feet started moving towards her, and as I got closer, I actually recognized her. It was Sophia. We'd dated for a while, but decided being friends was better. We hadn't spoken much since then though. I wondered what she was doing out here, at this time of night, and alone? Hey, so she looked up when I spoke, and my words caught in my throat. Our eyes met and my wolf went absolutely insane. She gasped softly, her own eyes widening as we stared at each other. Mate! We said at the same time. I smiled softly at her as she put her book to the side. Her long hair cascaded down her back, her bright eyes even brighter than usual. She stood, coming to stand in front of me. Her scent hit me, delicious and mouth-watering. The moment was silent, yet so powerful. I raised my hand, stroking her cheek gently. Sparks jumped off her skin at the contact, and I inhaled deeply. She was just as beautiful as always. Her honey blonde hair complemented her skin perfectly, and her eyes had this way of capturing me, holding me. I can't believe we ever decided to break up. It almost felt surreal, knowing now that she was my mate. How did I get so lucky? Guess friendship isn't going to work for us. I chuckled. I guess not. She stepped closer. Close enough that I felt the warmth of her body. I don't mind though. Me either. My fingers strayed back into her hair and she tilted her chin up. When our lips met, I swear I saw stars. She was smart, funny, sweet, and beautiful, inside and out. And I was more than happy to share this with her, just her, without a crowd. This was just us, together, exploring something new. Suddenly, Sophia pulled back harshly. What? What's wrong? I asked her. Her eyes scanned the area. I don't know. I thought. I felt. Like someone was. She trailed off. Was. I prompted. Was watching us. She rubbed the back of her neck, her eyes still darting around. Sorry. I looked around, not seeing anything out of the ordinary. Though our senses were better than humans. If she had such a strong feeling someone was out there, I was inclined to believe her. Hang on. I said. Mom. Yes. Even through mind link, she sounded tired. Can you send a couple of warriors to the park? The park? Why? Are you okay? Yes. I found my mate. But she says she feels like someone is out here and I just want to make sure. I rushed through the explanation. On her end, Mom was silent. I waited, but she didn't reply. Mom. Yes. I will send warriors to survey the area. So, who is your mate? Her name is Sophia. That's a lovely name. We can't wait to meet her. She didn't sound as excited as I thought she would have. Then again, she'd had a rough day, and she was exhausted. I'll bring her to breakfast tomorrow. Great. Stay in the park until the warriors get there. They are on their way. Thanks. Night. I cut off the mind link and took Sophia's hand in mine. My mom is sending warriors to check the area out. Oh Garrett, you didn't need to do that. I'm probably just being silly. Better safe than sorry. We waited exactly 3 minutes before 6 warriors showed up. Sophia explained awkwardly that she'd felt someone watching us, and they promised to look around. I wrapped my arm around her shoulder when they were gone, steering her away from the park. I feel so stupid. They shouldn't be wasting time with this. She mumbled. Don't worry about it. Maybe someone is out there, maybe that wretched Anne came back. She made a face. Maybe. I hope not. If your mom hadn't stepped in when she did, I would have. She growled. I bit back a smile. My fierce little mate. I looked up at the moon as we walked. It was almost full. Hey, wasn't your birthday recently? I asked. Yes. You missed it. Sorry. I'll make it up to you. I kissed her cheek. So, you'll be shifting soon? She fidgeted under my arm. Yeah. I'm not really looking forward to it though. Then she glanced up at me. Was it really bad? For you? My mind went back to that night. I remembered the pain, but I didn't want to scare her. Besides, I would be there to help her. I'm not going to lie, it was pretty brutal. But I'll be there with you. I smiled and she returned it. I can't believe it. I can't believe you're my mate. She laughed. I always hoped you would be, you know. Dreams can come true. I sang and she giggled. Hugo was jumping in my head, ecstatic that we'd finally found our other half. He was filling my head with wants of running through the forest together, hunting, and other, less innocent things. What's your wolf's name? I asked, trying to tune him out. "You're no fun at all," he whined at me. "Sky. Yours. Hugo. Can I meet him?" "Really?" "Yeah, why not?" I couldn't see why not. I stepped away from her, but she took a few extra steps back. I took off the majority of my clothes, only leaving my boxers. And then I shifted. Sophia stared at me incredibly. "You're red," she gasped. I lowered my head a bit. I didn't know why I was red, instead of black, but I was a little embarrassed about it. However, Sophia seemed excited as she skipped right up to me, holding out her hand like I was a dog. I touched her palm with my nose, inhaling her scent. It was so much stronger through this nose. "A red alpha. Did you know there hasn't been a red alpha in almost 1,000 years?" she asked. I picked up on the tone, the one she used when she was excited. I shook my head, indicating a no. "I was reading about alphas a while ago. The book caught my eye in the library. Red alphas are extremely rare, Garrett. Hugo. Whoever." She giggled again, her running through the fur on my face. It felt amazing. "Did you know that?" I asked Hugo. "I did actually. And you didn't mention it because you never asked." I scoffed, the sound coming out harsher in this form, and Sophia looked up at me. She smiled. "You're beautiful," she complimented. Hugo swelled with pride. "And big. I almost wonder what it would be like to ride you." That had Hugo practically bouncing up and down, filling our shared mind with all manner of dirty thoughts. I reeled him in quickly, not wanting to scare her away with my horny wolf. Instead, I kneeled, looking at her openly. Sophia's eyes widened and she laughed. "I wasn't serious, Garrett. I'll shift soon, and we can run together." I barked once, getting lower to the ground. Now that she'd brought it up, I wanted to try it. Maybe it would be fun. "Are you sure?" "Really?" I nodded once and she grinned happily. Without any more hesitation, she climbed onto my back, gripping the fur on my neck tightly. I stood carefully and heard her sharp intake of breath. I may not have been as big as Violet, but I sure wasn't small either. I took off in a light jog and Sophia yelped on my back. Soon though, she got the hang of it, and I found the experience to be quite enjoyable myself. Her hands in my fur were soft, the sparks from our bond igniting. I made up my mind that we would do this even after she shifted. Sophia leaned down, pressing her face against my neck. "This is amazing. I can't wait to run with you in wolf form." She sighed. "Sky can't wait either." I gave a happy yip. I'd brought us on a detour back to the pack house, taking extra time so she could enjoy herself. I stopped near some bushes, lowering myself so she could get off. She ran her hands through my coat once more before I walked behind the hedge to shift back. "Behind that tree behind you, there's a stash of clothes. Could you grab me some pants?" I called. "Oh, sure." A minute later, a pair of sweatpants were tossed at me. I threw them on and emerged. "That was so fun." Sophia squealed, throwing her arms around me. "Yeah," I agreed with a smile. We stared at each other, and I didn't know where to go from here. Everything in me was screaming to take her hand and bring her to my room. But did she want that? Should I ask her? Should I? So. Her hand ran up my bare chest, and I shivered under her touch. "Your place or mine?" I glanced at the pack house. We're already at my place." Then we only have a little farther to go. She took my hand, pulling me in that direction, but I stopped her. Sophia, what are you doing? I mean, what do you want? I shook my head. I mean, what do you want to happen tonight? What anyone in this pack wants? To spend the night with my mate. In what context though? She placed her hand on my cheek. In the context of I want you. I've always wanted you. I want you too. She smiled, leaning up to peck my lips. Then show me. My grip tightened around her. I pulled her closer, lowering my mouth to hers again. She accepted the kiss freely, her hands gliding around my body. I nibbled on her bottom lip, pulling it with my teeth. Come with me, I said when we pulled away. We walked together to the house, and inside. She didn't question the missing stairs and I didn't want to explain. My whole focus was on her, and once we got to my room, she pretty much attacked me. Somehow we ended up on the bed, our lips fighting for dominance. Everything was heat, sparks, and fire. I didn't even know she removed her shirt until my hands were skimming her smooth skin. I wanted to taste every inch of this girl, and I did just that. Starting at her forehead, my lips moved across her. I spent some extra time, my excitement growing at her moans. Her breathing was heavy as she looked down at me, her eyes half closed and full of lust. I slipped my fingers under the lace, pulling it down until she was revealed to me. Teasing her, I let my tongue flick out once, fast, barely touching her slit. She groaned, wiggling her hips a bit. I repeated the action several times before finally giving her what her body was begging for. I pleasured her with my mouth, taking my time. The sound of my name falling from her lips was music to my ears, and it encouraged me to go further. Garrett. Oh my goddess, yes. When I felt she was close enough, this was my first time, but it was so amazing to be doing it with her. Truth be told, I'd fantasized about this moment more than once. Part of me really hoped this wasn't a dream. I began to move inside her, afraid I might be hurting her. Wasn't she a virgin too? She did look a little uncomfortable. You okay? I breathed. Yes. It came out as kind of a plea, which turned me on more. Increasing my speed, it wasn't long before she became a moaning. She felt incredible, nothing else could compare. And when she finally found her release, she took me with her. We finished together, breathing raggedly. Wow! She mumbled. And that was only round one. I smirked. Time passed us by in a daze. By the time I became aware of anything but the girl in my bed, the sun was already up, shining in through the window and casting rays of light over us. Sophia was curled around me, fast asleep while I stroked her hair. At some point, I fell asleep too, a smile stuck on my face. Violet's POV. The next morning, I woke up alone. For a second, I felt sad, until my fingers touched something smooth on Jasper's pillow. Rolling over onto my elbow, I picked up the folded piece of paper and flipped it open. Vi gone to your dad's office. Come join me when you wake up. You looked so worn out, I didn't want to wake you. See you soon. Love, Jasper. XO. My lips curled into a smile. Could he get any cuter? This simple gesture leaving me a morning note warmed my heart and put me in a good mood. I tucked the paper under my pillow and then got out of bed, stretching minutely. And suddenly, a sharp pain hit my abdomen, making me wince. I doubled over, my face scrunching. The sensation hit again, and I streaked to the bathroom, making it just in time to empty last night's meek dinner into the toilet. What? I muttered to myself. Are we sick? I asked my wolf. Unbelievably, she giggled in my head. Not in the technical sense of the word. I narrowed my eyes. What does that mean? It means you should probably get a checkup. I thought she might be right, but I stayed over the toilet bowl for another 5 minutes, just in case I had another bout of sickness. When I was sure I felt fine, I stumbled into the shower. I washed and dried quickly before trying to brush my teeth. I spit the toothpaste out immediately, my throat burning. Checking the tube, I frowned. Could toothpaste even expire? I mean, of course it could, everything had an expiration date, right? But it wasn't just my throat, I had a weird taste in my mouth, and my chest burned as well as my throat. I put everything away, walking out to find clothes. I opted for a white blouse and some low-hanging jeans, and threw on my sneakers. Then I was off to find Jasper, heading towards my dad's temporary office at the end of the hall. I knocked once before letting myself in. Hey! I said. Dad, Jasper, Uncle Ben, and Uncle Luke looked up at me, giving me wide smiles. Morning! Dad's eyes immediately went to my neck. Let's have a look at that. Uncle Luke was in my face in a second, brushing my hair back and peering at my mark. Incredible, just incredible. I've never seen anything like it. I pushed him away gently. I'm glad you find it so interesting. It suits you. Both of you. Dad said. He looked between Jasper and I. Jasper was looking at me with such tenderness, such love, that I felt a blush color my cheeks. Was I ever going to get used to this intense feeling I had when I was around him? I kind of hoped I didn't, if I was being honest with myself. Clearing my throat, I stepped away from Luke, taking my mate's hand. Have you gotten a hold of the Silver Moon Beta and Gamma? I asked. Yes. They're on their way here now. They want proof that Warwick is dead. Will he be buried at Silver Moon? Yes. They will transport his body back. And where does that leave us? Dad leaned forward, crossing his arms. You can leave anytime. Probably sooner rather than later is best. You shouldn't leave your pack unattended for too long. Your pack. The words resonated through my head, seeming surreal to me. I always figured Garrett would be the alpha of Blood Moon, and me? I hadn't really thought about my future past meeting my mate. On the rare occasions I did, I assumed I would be mated to an alpha, or even a beta. Someone with blood to match mine. Still, I'd always brushed it off, thinking I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. Now that I was at it, I was more than a little nervous. I'll let you deal with them then. I need to go see Mom. I changed the subject. Why? Dad asked. I'm not feeling too great. Probably just anxiety about everything. I shrugged, trying to seem like it wasn't a big deal. But Jasper frowned, putting the back of his hand to my forehead. You are a little pale. Do you want me to go with you? I shook my head. No, you need to be here when the Beta and Gamma arrive. Silver Moon is only an hour or so away, right? They should be here soon. All right. Let me know how it goes. He kissed my forehead, the more familiar sparks erupting. I will. See you later. I waved to everyone as I left, opening a mind link to Mom. What's up, Vi? I smiled internally. Mom rarely used my nickname, she must be in a good mood this morning. Are you busy? Not really. Just doing some paperwork to discharge a patient. Can I come by the hospital? Sure. Is anything wrong? I just don't feel good. I was hoping you could give me a once-over. Of course. Come to room 310 when you get here. Tell Cal you're here to see me. Okay. See you in a minute. I ended the mind link, absorbed in my own thoughts as I made my way to the hospital. A few people stopped me on my way, politely exchanging morning greetings. I smiled at everyone, stopping to talk for a minute. Finally, I made it to my destination, hurrying up the front steps and through the doors. Cal sat behind the reception desk, clicking away on the computer, the screen reflecting in his glasses. He smiled when he looked up and saw me. Hello Violet. How are you this morning? I'm good Cal. I'm here to see my mom. No problem. She tell you where to go? Yup. Then, by all means. He gestured down the white-tiled corridor with a flourish and I laughed. Cal had been working for Mom for a few years now. Like herself before, he was training to become a pack doctor, under my mom. He was a funny guy, with his light brown hair and Harry Potter glasses. He was a hit with the kids who had to come here. I'd never seen a child more at ease while getting a vaccination, not that we needed many due to our higher immune systems. In fact, werewolf children only ever got 2 vaccines, for diseases that affected our species exclusively. They were extremely rare, but it happened sometimes. I gave him a salute as I passed the desk. My eyes scanned the numbers above the doors. I took a left, then a right, and then I opened the door to 310. Mom was already there, sitting on a chair and looking over a file. Just give me 1 second to read the rest of this, she said. I took a seat on the bed next to her, swinging my legs. After a few minutes of silence, she placed the papers down, giving me her full attention. Sorry about that. It's fine. I shrugged. So, what seems to be the problem? You said you aren't feeling well. She stood up, grabbing her stethoscope off the desk. Not really. My chest hurts, and my throat, and I have a weird taste in my mouth. I also got sick this morning. She frowned. What kind of taste? Kind of, acidic. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least, and 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt, where is the pain at? I thought about it. Probably a 1. It doesn't really hurt, I guess. It just feels like a burning. She tapped her chin with her finger. What did you eat last night? Nothing really. I had half a sandwich. I was too nervous to eat. Okay. I'm going to ask you some basic questions. Okay. Did you take anything after you got sick? No. Have you eaten this morning? No. She grabbed a pad and paper, jotting down my answers quickly before continuing. We already know when you went into heat. She wrote it down. Today is the first time you've been physically sick. Yes. No pain anywhere else? No. And how do you feel right now? Again, I stopped to analyze my body. Actually, aside from the burn, I feel fine. Maybe a little tired. She nodded, a small smile forming on her face. And when was the last time you had X? I shifted, but reminded myself there was nothing to be embarrassed about. This was my mom after all, she'd given me the X talk years ago. Besides, right now, she was a doctor first and mom second. I'd come to her, and she was doing her job. Last night. Okay. She set her pad aside. I want you to lie back on the bed. I'll be right back. I did as she asked, getting comfortable. The burn was stronger in this position though, and I wondered over what it could be. Mom didn't seem overly concerned, and that was comforting. If I was in trouble, I'm sure she would be freaking out right now. She came back not 2 minutes later, pushing a weird-looking machine with all sorts of cords and wires connected to it. "What's that?" I asked. "An ultrasound machine." Our eyes met. She had a knowing look in hers and it took me a few seconds to catch up to where she was. "No," I breathed. "I'm inclined to say yes, but let's make sure, all right." She shut the door, giving us privacy. "But we." The words wouldn't come out my mouth, so I closed it instead. "Was I pregnant?" "Lift your shirt. I'm going to tuck this towel into your pants. There. Okay, just breathe nice and steady, and relax." She touched my cheek gently, her eyes casting to the side. "Your dad told me you and Jasper marked each other." I blinked, unsure if I could respond right now. "It's lovely. Unique, and magical. Just like you." She gave me her mom smile. I hadn't seen it in a long time, and seeing it now, in this situation, almost brought tears to my eyes. "Thanks," I managed. "This is cold." She held up a tube before upending it and squirting the clear jelly onto my lower stomach. I watched as she started the monitor, grabbing the ultrasound wand. "We might need to do an internal ultrasound. But I'll try this first, okay?" I nodded. Can you?" She paused, the wand hovering above my stomach. "Can you turn it? So I can see too?" I whispered. "Sure." The monitor turned, a simple black screen. Mom adjusted her chair, then placed the wand over the jelly. The screen immediately lit up. It looked like static on a television, except it was blue and grey instead of white and black. My heart was almost beating out of my chest as she moved it around, turning it this way and that. I picked out every odd-shaped thing I saw, wondering if that was a baby. It was dead silent in the room, only our breathing and my pounding heart made any ounce of noise. So it startled me when Mom stopped moving the tool and spoke. "Ah." She looked at me and I looked at her, then back to the monitor. "Where?" I asked quietly. She pointed. "Here." Then her finger moved to the left. "And here." I squinted at the screen, not fully processing her words. And then I saw it. I saw them. 2 little squiggles, side by side. Twins? I was having twins? Oh my goddess, I was pregnant with twins. "See, here." The screen enlarged, giving me a close-up of my babies. "You can see their heartbeats. It looks like you're only a few weeks along, you must have conceived even before your heat hit." "And?" She scooted her chair closer, enlarging even more. "I 2 sacks, so non-identical twins." Surprisingly, her words hit me on impact. It was surprising, considered how shocked I was right now. Twins, would they be boys, or girls? What should we name them? Would they be healthy? A million thoughts ran through my head as I stared at the screen, watching 2 tiny hearts beating. Big, fat tears were running down my cheeks, but I didn't care. Love washed over me, more powerful than I thought possible. It was fierce, almost overwhelming. It was very similar to the mate bond I had with Jasper, but also very different. I knew I would do anything for those 2 little squiggles, protect them wherever I could, and love them unconditionally. My heart felt so full, I wasn't sure if it would burst or not. "Violet." Unwillingly, I forced my eyes away from my babies to look at my mom. Can you please say something? I'm trying very hard to remain professional right now, given that I just found out I'm going to have grandbabies. A slightly hysterical laugh burst forth from me. I'm just so happy. I cried. I know. I am too. Here, let me print a couple of pictures of the darlings. She clicked around on the keyboard a bit. I was sad when she removed the wand, the screen going dark, until she handed me the pictures. I couldn't stop staring at them. So, how are you going to tell Jasper? Mom asked as she washed her hands at the nearby sink. I had no idea. You remember what I did when I found out I was pregnant with you? I laughed again. Yes. Well, I remember the video. I'm not sure I want to do something like that though. She came to sit beside me, giving me a side hug and a kiss on the temple. However you want. Then I got an idea, and grinned. I know how I want to do it. I'll need you there though, I want to take a video of his reaction too. I wouldn't miss that for the world. The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.